What if the busiest place in your entire backyard is a place you almost never look? Not the trees, not the flowers, not the grass, but the space beneath a single garden stone, somewhere in America, right now. A homeowner is walking through their yard after a spring rain. The air smells fresh. The soil is damp. Everything looks completely ordinary. Then they notice a flat stone near the edge of the garden. Maybe it has been there for years. Maybe they have walked past it hundreds of times without giving it a second thought. But today, something makes them curious. They bend down, slide their fingers beneath the edge, and lift. What happens next lasts only a few seconds. Yet it reveals a world that most people never realize exists. The moment the stone leaves the ground, the earth beneath suddenly comes alive. Tiny creatures race in every direction. Some disappear into cracks, some vanish beneath leaves, some seem to melt directly into the soil itself. For a brief moment, it feels as if an entire hidden city has been exposed. Then just as quickly it disappears again. Most people never think much about this. They assume the creatures were simply hiding. They assume the stone was providing shade. They assume there is nothing remarkable happening underneath. But what if they are wrong? What if that stone is not a hiding place? What if it is a gathering place? What if it is one of the most important structures in your entire backyard ecosystem? Think about that for a moment. How many times have you walked through your garden and assumed you were seeing everything? How many times have you looked at a patch of soil and believed it was empty? How many times have you stepped over a stone without realizing thousands of living creatures might be only inches beneath your feet? Because the truth is stranger than most people imagine. The world beneath garden stones is not quiet. It is not empty. And it is not waiting for something to happen. It is already alive. Every hour, every day, every season. Thousands of tiny creatures are hunting, building, feeding, reproducing, hiding, and surviving beneath the stones scattered across American gardens. And the strangest part is that most homeowners never notice any of it. Not because these creatures are rare, but because they are masters of invisibility. The moment their shelter is disturbed, they disappear. The moment light reaches them, they scatter. The moment humans arrive, they are gone. Yet for a few seconds after a stone is lifted, the hidden world becomes visible, and what you see during those few seconds can completely change the way you look at your garden. But before we uncover who these creatures are, I want you to think about something else. Have you ever noticed how certain places in nature always seem alive? A fallen log, a pile of leaves, a patch of damp soil after rain, a shaded corner of a backyard. Even when nothing appears to be moving, you can feel that something is happening. That feeling turns out to be correct, because nature rarely wastes space. Every leaf supports life. Every stem becomes shelter. Every patch of soil contains thousands of invisible stories unfolding at the same time. Predators searching for prey, engineers building tunnels, scavengers recycling dead material, microscopic creatures transforming the ground beneath your feet, entire communities operating silently, just out of sight. And nowhere is that hidden activity concentrated more densely than beneath the stones scattered throughout American gardens. At first glance, a garden stone appears lifeless, cold, silent, ordinary. But the moment you turn it over, a completely different reality appears. A reality that has been there all along, waiting beneath your feet. And once you discover why so many creatures gather there and what they are actually doing, you may never walk through your backyard the same way again. So who exactly is living beneath these stones? This is where the story becomes far more fascinating than most people expect. Because when people imagine life beneath a garden stone, they often picture a few insects hiding from the sun. The reality is much stranger. The space beneath a single stone functions almost like a miniature city. Different species arrive for different reasons. Some come for moisture. Some come for safety. Some come because their next meal is waiting there. And some come because the creatures they want to eat are already gathered beneath the stone. Let us start with one of the most common residents, the pillbug. Across America, millions of homeowners have seen them. Small gray creatures with segmented armor that roll into tight balls when disturbed. Many people call them roly-polies. Others call them doodlebugs. But very few people realize what they are actually looking at. Because pillbugs are not insects at all. They are crustaceans, relatives of crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. Think about that for a moment. One of the most familiar creatures in American gardens is more closely related to a lobster than to an ant, and yet it spends its life crawling through soil beneath stones and leaves. Why? Because like many of the creatures gathered there, It depends on moisture to survive. Remove the stone and the environment changes immediately. The humidity drops, the temperature rises, the shelter disappears, which is why the moment a stone is lifted, the pillbugs scatter. But they are only the beginning, because beneath many stones there is another resident that most people never notice. Springtails, tiny creatures, so small that entire colonies can exist without attracting attention. At first glance, they look like moving specks of dust, yet together they may number in the thousands. Scientists consider springtails among the most abundant animals on Earth. A single square meter of healthy soil can contain tens of thousands of them, and beneath the right stone, you may find more life than exists in an entire section of visible garden above. What are they doing there? They are recycling, feeding on fungi, breaking down decaying material, returning nutrients to the soil, quietly helping your garden function every day, every night, without anyone noticing. And this is where most people misunderstand the hidden world beneath stones. When we look at a garden, we notice flowers, trees, vegetables, grass, but those visible plants depend on an enormous invisible workforce operating below them. Without that workforce, the entire system begins to fail. The soil becomes less fertile, organic matter accumulates, nutrients stop moving efficiently through the ecosystem. In many ways, the creatures beneath the stones are not visitors. They are maintenance workers. They are cleaners. They are recyclers. They are engineers. And they have been doing this work long before the first American backyard ever existed. But the story becomes even stranger, because not everything beneath the stones is peaceful. Hidden among the recyclers are hunters, predators, creatures that spend their lives searching for prey in darkness. Some move with incredible speed. Others rely on stealth. And some are so efficient that most people never realize they are there until the stone is lifted. Suddenly, a hunting spider races away. A centipede disappears into a crack. A beetle vanishes beneath the soil. For a brief moment, the hidden food web becomes visible. Then it disappears again. Think about that. Every stone may contain an entire ecosystem. Not just one species, not just 10 species, sometimes dozens of species interacting at the same time. Eating, hiding, competing, reproducing, surviving, all within a space smaller than a dinner plate. And perhaps the most surprising part is that these creatures are not gathering there by accident. The stone itself creates a special environment, a stable environment, a protected environment, an environment that remains cooler during hot afternoons and warmer during cold nights. Moisture stays trapped longer. Wind cannot reach it. Sunlight cannot dry it out as quickly. To us, it is simply a rock. To thousands of tiny creatures, it is an apartment building, a shelter, a fortress, and sometimes an entire world. And perhaps that is the most surprising discovery of all. Not that thousands of creatures live beneath American garden stones. Not that entire ecosystems can exist in a space smaller than a dinner plate. Not even that many of these creatures are essential to the health of your garden. The most surprising thing is how easily we overlook them. Think about how many times you have walked through your yard, how many times you have watered your plants, pulled weeds, trimmed bushes, mowed grass, or simply enjoyed a quiet afternoon outside. All while, an entire hidden world was operating only inches below your feet. A world filled with hunters and scavengers, engineers and recyclers, predators and prey, all carrying out roles that help keep the ecosystem alive, without recognition, without attention, without anyone realizing they were there, because nature rarely advertises its greatest achievements. The most important processes often happen where nobody is looking, beneath the soil, inside a fallen log, within a pile of leaves, and beneath the stones scattered throughout gardens across America. The next time you see one of those stones, I want you to pause for a moment before you lift it, before you move it, before you assume it is nothing more than a piece of rock. Consider what may be living underneath. A colony of springtails recycling nutrients, a family of pillbugs breaking down dead material, predatory beetles searching for prey, tiny spiders hunting insects, centipedes moving through underground tunnels, or perhaps dozens of different species sharing the same shelter at the same time, each one playing a role, each one helping maintain the balance of the world above. And this is what makes garden stones so remarkable. They are not simply objects resting on the ground. They are gateways into a hidden ecosystem most people never notice. A place where life gathers, where moisture remains, where survival becomes possible, and where thousands of tiny stories unfold every single day. Stories that began long before the first American garden existed, long before suburban neighborhoods, long before roads and cities, long before people ever thought about landscaping their backyards. Generation after generation, these creatures adapted to the same simple strategy. Find shelter, conserve moisture, avoid predators, survive, and the garden stone became one of the safest places available. What appears ordinary to us may be extraordinary to them. That is a lesson nature teaches again and again. The things we ignore are often the things that matter most. The smallest creatures often perform the biggest jobs, and the hidden parts of the ecosystem are often the parts holding everything together. So the next time you walk through your backyard after rain, and you notice a stone resting quietly among the plants, remember this: that stone may not be empty. It may contain thousands of living creatures, entire communities, entire food webs, entire worlds operating silently beneath your feet. And once you understand that, you may never look at your garden the same way again. Now, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever lifted a garden stone and been surprised by what you found underneath? Tell me in the comments, what was living there? And did it change the way you think about your garden? Because every garden hides secrets, and some of the most fascinating ones are waiting just beneath the next stone. And if you think the hidden world beneath stones is remarkable, wait until you discover what happens beneath the soil itself while you sleep. That story may be even stranger.